Welcome back, everyone. This is Ben, and we are going over Chapter 6 of Reading Hebrew. And this chapter, we are going over nouns and verbs, plural. So we'll start off with the vocabulary. First, we have this column here. We have ach, which is brother, eretz, land and country, derech, road or way, heim, or heima, which is they, the masculine form of they, and hein, heina, which is they but the feminine form. We also have har, which is mountain or hill. We have yom, which is day. We have moav, which is Moab. Eved, which is slave or servant. We have the verb avar, which is to cross over or pass. We have ir for city, which is a people or nation, shalach, which is the verb send, and sham, which is the word there. I know normally I just say the Hebrew word, but I thought this time I would do the Hebrew and the English just so it might make it a little easier to follow. Also, in some books, this word here, hein, or at least the spelling of the word, is not in the vocabulary list, but it was in one of the vocabulary lists that I looked at for this chapter, so I just included it here. You might not see it in your book, your version of the book, but it is a form of the word they, feminine. Another note, this comes from the book too, and as always I recommend, if you're going to do this, to follow along in the book, so to actually have a copy of the book, the first Hebrew Primer 3rd edition, which link will be in the description. I would recommend that because there are a lot of notes that I don't go over, such as with the vocabulary, there's usually a few notes to go over some of the words, which I'm not going to do. I normally don't, but they are there, and I would certainly recommend looking at those because you might notice something there like an idiom, or as an example in this chapter, it gives the example, for instance, the word day. If you add a definite hey at the beginning and make it hayom, which literally would be the day, in Hebrew, that is much more alike to the English today. So if we were to say today in Hebrew, it would be hayom with a definite hey at the beginning. So those are some of the notes that you'll get in the chapter, which is in the actual physical book that I normally don't go over, just to keep things more condensed and simple, just to hit on the main points, which is the point of this series. So in this chapter, we are going over plural of nouns, plural of verbs, and so we're going to start with the plural of nouns. So like all languages, Hebrew nouns have both singular and plural forms. And there are two forms of plural in Hebrew, and those are a masculine plural form and a feminine plural form. In English, usually the plural form will take on just the ending s or es at the end, such as, we have the singular word book, but we have the plural form books, or we have the singular wish, but we have the plural form wishes. So we either add an s or an es in English, but in Hebrew, the two forms of plural are either going to be masculine or feminine. So for masculine plural nouns, we have an added ending, so these are going to be at the end of a word. So for example, we have the singular form. There's a couple words here. We have davar and melech. But if you want to make them plural, what we do is we add a hirik, yod, and a mem at the end of a word. So instead of davar, it's davarim, and instead of melech, it's melachim. So the masculine plural ending is the hirik, the yod, and the mem. And I apologize, in my typing, this did not default to the end form of a mem, so this is actually the wrong form of this letter. It's still a mem, but it's not the end form here, so don't let this confuse you. This is actually an error. So this is what the plural form of these words look like. Something else you'll notice is that the vowel can change when you take a word from the singular to the plural. This is very normal. I don't know the technical rule behind this of why the vowels change, I don't know if it's because vowels are being added. So, for instance, under the resh in davar, in the singular form, there's no vowel. In the plural form, there is. And maybe that affects how the beginning of the word is constructed. I'm not really sure. That's just a guess. But I don't know the rule behind that. But again, this is why it's important to know the base form or the root form of a word. And I'm not just talking about the root form like this with the vowels. I'm talking about just the letters themselves, the consonants. The dalet, the veit, and the resh. That is the root form of this word. So to be able to recognize that is really important because you are going to encounter instances where the vowels are going to change on you. And that's why it's helpful to know the consonants much more than it is to know the vowels. Consonants are key. And this is just a part of Hebrew history itself. Hebrew had just consonants in the written form for a long time. The vowels were added much later in the history of Hebrew as a language. So that's why the consonants are more important to know than the vowels. The vowels were really just put into the text to help with the reading and help know how words are supposed to be pronounced. But the oldest form of Hebrew that the texts were originally written in are actually more similar to modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew does not have any vowels. It's all consonants. So that's why it's important to know the consonants of these words. So back to the point, this is what the masculine plural ending looks like, is the hirik yod with a mem. And feminine plural nouns, they also have a change to their ending. And they usually have the ending ot. We have the full cholam and a tav. So for example, you have the singular form of the feminine word eretz, which is land or country. If you want to make that plural, you just add a cholam tav at the end of it. So instead of eretz, it's aretzot. So that is how you get the plural form. So this would be lands or countries. So that's how you take the word from singular to plural is in the feminine form. You have the cholam tav at the end. And just a note here, nouns ending in a hey or a tav, they always lose that hey or the tav when the plural ending is attached. So for example, the word bahema, which is cattle or animal, that is the singular form of this feminine word. You notice it has the hey ending, that open ending, which is usually going to be for a feminine noun. But if you want to make it plural, the hey drops out and it's replaced just with the cholam tav. So instead of, the singular bahema, it's not bahemaot, it's just bahemot. And this one is easier to learn and get used to. I don't know of many students I've worked with or have taught that have been really hung up on this because partly is pronunciation. It sounds very similar, bahema, bahemot. So there hasn't been a lot of confusion, at least on this particular word. But this ot ending will almost always give away the fact that you're dealing with a feminine plural. The same thing with the masculine im ending, that hirik yod with a mem, that always gives away that it's a masculine plural. This always gives it away that it's a feminine plural. You do have irregular plural nouns, and we'll look at those. So for example, what that means is that some of the Hebrew nouns don't follow the basic rules. So you have some masculine nouns that have feminine plural endings, like the word av, which is father, which is a masculine word, but in the plural form, it's avot. You also have some feminine nouns that have masculine plural endings, like the word ir, which is city. Well, in the plural form, it's arim. Again, by the way, this is not the end form of a mem. I apologize for that. But this is a feminine word, so you would expect that this would be something like irot, with that ot ending for the feminine plural. But that's actually not what this word does. This word has the masculine plural ending, with that im ending. And again, you'll notice here that the vowels change. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, don't get too hung up on that. As long as you're focusing more on the consonants, you should be fine. And this word is also irregular in the fact that when it is made plural, the yod in the middle drops out, which I'm guessing is why the vowel changes. Again, this is sort of getting into very technical aspects of how the Hebrew language works, and how the words are constructed. But that's something to keep in mind, that the plural form of ear is arim. And this, you can get hung up on this because that yod is not there. So this is just something that's going to come by memorization and by just focusing on it and just getting used to seeing it in sentences. And this word does come up enough in the exercises, it comes up enough in the readings that you'll be able to recognize it before too long if you're having trouble with it. So now that we've gone over plural nouns, it's time to go over plural verbs. So, sorry about the weird timing on that. So we already know the third person masculine, feminine, and singular verb forms. And I don't know why they're not coming up. There we go. All right, so I know I have the whole screen on here. Just focus on this part for now. So this is the verb form for the third person masculine singular. You have a comments under the first letter, a patak under the second, nothing under the third. When you have a third person feminine singular verb form, you have the comments under the first, a shiva under the second letter, a comments under the third, and it ends with a hey. Now, if you want to have a third person plural form, it's the same for masculine and feminine, which keeps it simple. So you have a comments under the first letter, a shiva under the second, and it ends with a shurik. And this is the construction for a third person plural form. And this is true whether you're working with third person masculine, third person feminine. If it's a third person plural form, this is what the construction is going to look like. So let's look at some examples. So you have this sentence here, and I like how in the book it walks you through this. You have this sentence here, which is habein shamar, which means the son guarded. Now you have the next sentence, habanim shamru. I'll actually say that again to be a little slower. Habanim shamru, which this is translated, the sons guarded. Or it could also be the children guarded. The word bain in plural could mean sons, it could just mean children in general. So this is habanim shamru, which is the sons guarded. This is a third person plural form. The sons guarded. And the next example, which is habanot shamru. Now this word is a little tricky. So you have this example, habanot shamru, which is the daughters guarded. So again, you'll notice here that this is actually the same verb construction, shamru, shamru. But this one is a masculine ending, this one is a feminine ending. That's because third person plural forms of the verb construction are the same. Whether they're masculine or feminine, it's going to have the comments under the first letter, shiva under the second, nothing under the third, but ending with a shurik. And I also want to point out something else here, which is this word banot. Now, at first glance, it might look like a feminized form of the word bain, which is the word son, but just made into a feminine plural with the ot ending. However, that's actually not what's taking place here. The root form of this word is not bain, it's bat. And you'll notice this on page 42 of your book. At the top of the page, it will have a short vocabulary list, and one of the words there is bat. It's a bait with a patak and a tav, bat. That's the word for daughter. And this is what the plural form of that word looks like, is banot. That is the plural form of bat. This is not the plural form of bain, just with a feminine ending. This is an entirely separate word that we're working with here. And this one is tricky because it looks exactly like this, ban. It looks like this is just another way to spell bain, but it's not. It's actually the word bat. So this can get tricky, so that's why I actually appreciate that they use this as an example in the book, because this is something that can get tricky when you see it in practice. Banim is the plural form of sons, The root form of that word is bain, and banot is the plural form of daughters, and the root form of that one is bat. Now that we've talked about plural nouns and plural verbs, we're going to switch gears and talk about some prepositions. So in Hebrew, there are things that are called inseparable prepositions. Now we've already learned two separate prepositions, which are the words min and el. Min being the word from, el being the word for to or for. And these are separate words. They're treated separately. They are not prefixes of words. Although min does have some forms that are prefixes, such as when you just add a mem with a hirik or with a segal. But there are some Hebrew prepositions that are called inseparable, and those ones are simply prefixes on nouns. So we have these as an example. We have, I'll just start over here. We have the word la, which is to or for, which is connected with this word el, which is also to or for. You have ka, which is like or as, and you have ba, which is in, with, or on. Sometimes it could take on a different definition depending on context, but the vast majority of the time, the bait with a shiva at the beginning of a word functioning as a preposition is going to be in, with, or on. And also, typically, these prepositions take the shiva vowel. So I've had to pull this slide up with everything on it. Sorry if it's a little confusing. So what happens when we deal with prepositions that are attached to words that are definite? Or I should say they're attached with a definite hey. So when the prepositions la, ka, or ba are attached to a word that has the definite hey, the following changes take place. First off, the hey is dropped at the beginning of that word, and any vowel that appeared under the hey is transferred to the preposition, and that's a typo. I'm having a lot of issues with my slides this week. Sorry about that. It's just one of those things. And also, any dagesh that appeared in the first letter of a word is preserved, so that doesn't change. So for example, let's look at this word. We have habayit, which is the house. We have the definite hey here at the beginning. We have this dagesh here in the first letter, telling us that this is a definite form. It's not a house or just house. It is the house. So what happens if you add the preposition beit in front of it? Well, you don't have the shiva. What you have is the same vowel that was under the hey goes to the preposition letter, which in this case is a beit. And then the rest of the word is constructed the way it normally is. So you have babayit, which is in the house, or on the house, or technically even with the house, depending on context. You notice this is not ha babayit, and it is not as if the preposition is attached to the definite hey, making it ba habayit. The preposition takes the place of the definite hey, meaning that it takes its vowel, so it's no longer a shiva underneath. And this is a very important part, is to remember that when the shiva is underneath a preposition, that word that it's attached to is indefinite. So if this, for example, if this were a shiva underneath here, under this word, I'm not going to get into the detail of how the vowels would all be affected, but if this beit had a shiva underneath it, and it's babayit, with the shiva, this just means in a house, or in house. It would not be in the house, just in a house. It would be indefinite. But with the definite hey at play here, which you notice with the vowel change, this makes the word definite. So this would be in the house. The other example here is ha'av, which is the father. Again, when you have a preposition attached to it, the preposition takes whatever vowel was underneath the hey, but the hey has dropped out, and the preposition has taken its place. So you have la'av, which is to the father, or for the father. Not to a father, or for a father. It's to the father. And a little bit more about inseparable prepositions is that the preposition el is often interchangeable with the preposition lamed. Also, this preposition can mean either to or for. It really depends on the context, and I'm going to be saying that a lot throughout this course. A lot of how we translate words depends on the context. just like the preposition bait, can mean either in, with, or on. And now I actually wanted to go over an example from the Hebrew text to kind of illustrate how definite and indefinite prepositions can affect the interpretation and translation of the text. So I want to pull up Genesis 1:1, which actually at this point, some of it should be fairly easy to read. We actually know some of these words. So this is Genesis 1:1 in the Hebrew text. And I'll just read it out. Bareshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et ha'eretz. I know that's not perfect Hebrew, but that's how it would be read. So I want to call our attention to something here. I know we don't understand a lot of this. I'll just go over each word. So this is the word for beginning, and it has a preposition at the beginning. This is the verb for create. This word Elohim is the word for God. This word we actually do not translate. We'll get into this in either the next chapter or the chapter after it. This is actually a definite direct object marker. This word is the heavens. Then we have another direct object marker with the conjunctive vav. And then we have the word the land or the country. So in beginning, he created God, or in English, God created the heavens and the earth. So that is Genesis 1:1. But you'll notice something here. Remember what we just learned about prepositions and how they're constructed. And I want to ask what we notice about this preposition here. By the way, this bait is not a part of the word. So this is a preposition. You notice there's a shava underneath it. Now we would imagine if this were a definite noun, that this vowel would look a lot different. It would either be a kametz, or it might be a patach, or maybe even a segal. Because we would expect that if this preposition were not here, that there should be a definite hey. After all, that's how we usually translate it, right? We usually translate Genesis 1:1 in the beginning. However, that's actually not what's going on in the Hebrew text. Literally, what's going on in the Hebrew text is just in beginning, or in a beginning. It's indefinite. So what does that mean? Well, what a lot of scholars have come to agree upon is that Genesis 1:1 is acting like an introductory statement. Similar to in fairy tales, we have the statement, once upon a time. It's sort of introducing the fact that there is a story coming into play. Genesis 1:1 is more of a way of saying that in the beginning, this is how creation occurred. And so if we're looking at Genesis 1 as a timeline, it actually starts with Genesis 1 verse 2. So the way it would be read would be, in the beginning when God created everything, this is how it happened. It all started with a formless and empty earth. Because that's essentially what Genesis 1:2 says. Now the earth was, void and formless. So I know that's a lot of explaining, but that just illustrates how knowing how a preposition functions can alter how a passage of the text can be interpreted. Also, I thought this was pretty interesting too, was that if you read John 1:1 in the Greek, I know we're not going over Greek, but here it is. This is the Greek en arche, which is in beginning or in foundation. And similar to English, Greek has definite articles. So like in English, we have the word the. In Greek, there are a lot of different definite articles that could be used. However, in the Greek, this is actually written out the same way as this is. This literally says in beginning. Not in the beginning, because there's no definite article here. This is just in beginning. Just like in the Hebrew, this says in beginning. And a lot of scholars, I know I'm drawing from scholars, they agree that John is actually drawing from the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew text. So I just thought that was funny that there's a parallel where Genesis 1:1 literally starts with in beginning. John 1:1 also starts with in beginning. So just a fun fact for you, how knowing definite articles and indefinite articles and indefinite prepositions, how it can look in interpretation. So take that how you want. You can use it, you can not use it, but it's there for you. So that's going to conclude this chapter. For exercises, I would recommend exercises 2, 4, 5, and 8. I found it pretty exciting that exercise 8 has pretty long sentences, but that's how far you've come so far in learning Hebrew, that by the end of chapter 6 you can read 3 straight lines of Hebrew and be able to translate it. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to the next time where we will be talking about the perfect tense. So getting more in depth with verbs and how they function and looking at all of that. But don't feel too overwhelmed. The pacing of this book actually does a really good job. It doesn't overwhelm you. It goes at a pretty good pace, but you do learn a lot fairly quickly. There is a lot to absorb, but the book does a good job of not making you feel over encumbered. So next time we'll look at the perfect tense. Again, do exercises 2, 4, 5, and 8, and also the oral review. As always, you can do more exercises if you want to, if you find that helpful. So that'll be it for this time, and I will see you next week for Chapter 7.